Okay, so the title of the article I'll be summarizing today is Agricultural Virtual Water Trade and Water Footprint of the US States. So in my summary of this article, I'll tell you what virtual water is, what types there are, how it's traded around the United States, and finally why you should care. So first off, what is virtual water? Virtual water can be defined as the amount or volume of water it takes to make up a product. So let's say we all have a garden and we want to grow some wheat. So if you wanted the virtual water content of our wheat, you would measure how much, or the volume of rain that fell directly onto our wheat, as well as the volume of water that we use the hose on. And the hose water would be coming from a freshwater source nearby. If you did that from the time our wheat was a seed to the time that we harvested it, then you'd have the virtual water content of our wheat. So virtual water content can depend on what the product is as well as where it's grown. So for example, in Illinois, it takes about 270 cubic meters of water to grow a ton of corn. But in California, it takes about 770 cubic meters of water. So that's about 3 times as much corn that you can grow in Illinois for the same amount of water. So that's location. And then the product, it depends on the product. So your average dairy cow throughout the United States takes about 74,000 cubic meters of water to make that dairy cow, or per ton of dairy cow. So your average dairy cow weighs about 1,500 pounds, and if you were to put the virtual water content of a 1,500 pound dairy cow and put that onto a football field, the water would stand up about 33 feet. So that's a lot of water. So it might come to no surprise to you that about 70% of the fresh water withdrawals worldwide goes to agriculture. And that number is about 53% for the freshwater withdrawals in the United States. So the authors of my article thought it would be wise to look at how agricultural products, virtual water contents are traded around the US. And they looked at the 18 primary agricultural products in the US. So that means the 9 livestock that are raised on more than 99% of the pasture in the US, and the 9 crops that are grown on on about 96% of the cropland in the US. In my example, when we had the garden, again with the wheat, the rain that fell onto our crops is considered green water, and the water that we use from the freshwater source is considered blue water, which is important to look at how that is used throughout the US. So in the East Coast, you've got a lot of big populous cities, and they don't grow as much of their own stuff, and they end up being net importers. They import more agricultural products in terms of virtual water than they export. So they're big importers, but a big I for that. The Midwest, like Rapid City, we do not have a lot of big cities, and we have a lot of cropland. We get a good amount of rain, so we get a good amount of green water, and so that means we don't have to use as much blue water, and we end up being big net exporters. And finally, the Southwest, like California, it's pretty arid, still big populous cities. So like the East Coast, they have big populous cities, and so they import a lot of their stuff. It's kind of the same with the Southwest, how they should be importing more than they export, but they end up exporting more than they import, just a little bit more, so put a little e. Even though they don't get a lot of rain, so we'll put a small b, or a small g. And so that means they have to use more fresh water. So the authors of my article basically think that areas shouldn't be trying to export a lot of agricultural products if they don't really have the local water to support that, which the Southwest seems to be doing, and so that kind of makes our country a little bit less efficient than it could be in terms of water use. So that's how it's traded around the United States. And finally, why you should care. I found a Nat Geo article that talked about 9 major rivers around the world that, I guess, reached the ocean for millions of years, and then we started making dams in certain places and overused the water for agriculture mostly, and they no longer reach the ocean. So then there's the ecosystems are affected, closer to the ocean on the river, and they weren't negatively affected before. Also, there's this example of the Aral Sea, I think in Kazakhstan, and it used to be the 4th largest sea in the world, until the Soviet Union came in, I think in the 1960s, and they started diverting some of the water that went to the Aral Sea for agriculture. And now it's just like, well, it's something like 10% of what it used to be. It's like a really small percentage of what it used to be. It used to be the fourth largest sea in the world, and it's almost gone. So there are things we can do today to make our water use more efficient, and things we can do today to prevent bigger problems concerning water use later. Thank you.